Hello everyone, welcome to AY Stitches Fashion TV. Last video we talked about basic sleeve, short sleeve, 3/4 and long sleeve. Today we want to talk about sleeve variation for women, leg of mutton, bishop sleeve and puff sleeve. Don't forget to always subscribe, follow and like. There's more to know about fashion. Let's go to the class.
Welcome to this module where we are going to be working on the sleeve variations. Okay, so I have 3 sleeve variations we are going to be working with. I have the first one as a leg of mutton or leg of mutton sleeve. The second one, which is what? The puff sleeve. So then the last one, which is what? The bishop sleeve. So we are going to be going through these 3 sleeve variations. So if you don't mind, join me on the journey of the sleeve variations. So now for the leg of mutton sleeve, which is what? The leg of mutton sleeve, or you can call it the leg of mutton sleeve. This is a sleeve that looks like the bishop sleeve, or we can say the puff sleeve. But this time around, the fullness is just at the sleeve crown, alright? And at the end of the day, by the time you get to maybe your desired tightening, you see that there's a fullness at the upper part. But at a point in time, it begins to narrow up to the M line of the sleeve. So that is the leg of mutton sleeve. So fullness at the sleeve crown without any seam like the puff sleeve. But this time around, it becomes narrow. So now let's move on to the journey of the leg of mutton sleeve, where we have the fullness at the upper part. So now you can determine to have your narrowed sleeve from the elbow line. You can determine to have it at the 3/4 level. So it all depends on where you want the narrowed sleeve to start from. But in as much as you're going to be having the narrowed sleeve, we need to achieve the fullness also to the desired stop. So now let me determine to have my narrowed sleeve along the 3/4. So let's assume this is where my 3/4 length gets to. So now this is my 3/4 sleeve length, right? So that is where I want my fullness to get to before I begin to have a narrowed M line. So now all you need to do now is to slash through the top line, the front and the back line, so you are slashing through to the 3/4 length. Now you're going to be separating both the fullness part and the narrowed sleeve part. So it's best you just label 1, 2, 3 and 4, so that by the time you slash through, you don't have to mix up the whole pieces together, because don't forget, you need to achieve what? The sleeve crown back into placement. So now let me slash through the 3/4 sleeve length. Yeah, so we have all the pattern piece separated. So at this point that we have the pattern piece separated, all you just need to do is to pick up an empty sheet, whereby we are going to replace all this pattern piece back to each other. So all you just need to do is to first tape down the narrowed sleeve part. So now at this point, I'm just going to be getting my top line back. So now that we have the top line back, so now I need to figure out the pattern piece. So if you are not done it right, here we now have a mix up. So that's the whole idea of the labeling. So now the first thing first, I need to get a fullness, and for you to get a fullness for the upper part, it means you have to slash and spread, right? So now we need to achieve our spreading out, right? But don't forget, you have a side seam which you are putting into consideration, in as much as you are going to be having a fullness at the upper part, which it all depends on how full you want it to be. All right, so now at this point, the first thing first which I'm going to be working with is the side seam. So now I'm just going to be taping down those pattern pieces back to each other. Now it has to be exactly not overlapping, neither too far from it, because the sleeve length must not be affected. So it should just be at the tip. So whatever I am doing here, I'll also be replicating it down here. So all I just need to do is to measure out what I have here as the fullness. So what I have here that have been slashed out is just 1.5. So now that same 1.5 which I have slashed out for the other part is what I'm also slashing out for this part. It has to be exactly the same thing. So I'm going to be taping it down. Okay, so now that I have taped down that part, so I need to fix up the remaining piece. So all I just need to do now is to align this part. So it's actually coming like a slight curve connecting back to each other. So you can see I'm trying to align this part, which is the slashed part, the straight line that we had. So you have to align it back to each other, then you tape down. So there's really no measurement to this because it all depends on how full you want it to be. So if you want it more fuller from the side, which is number 1 and number 4, you have to open it more wider. So I'm just taping down. Okay, so now once you are done with all the tapings, all you just need to do is to connect the sleeve crown together. So at this point now, what you just need to do first is to connect the upper part with a curve. So once you are done with this, now at this part, it could be tricky, and that's because you've slashed and opened up at this part. So don't be concerned about what we have here as the sleeve. Just connect from the UP point all the way back to the curve, just like this. Just as we've seen here. So the next thing for me to do is to add my necessary sewing allowance. At the side seam, I'm just going to be working with 1/2 inch. Now 1/2 inch because this is no longer a straight piece. I used 1 inch for every other sleeve because it is a straight piece. But now for leg of mutton, this is no longer straight, right? So it's becoming a slight curve. So in that case, just add 1/2 inch to it, 1.5 inch to the hemline, 1/2 inch to the sleeve crown. So at this point now, I'm just going to be making this a slight curve to connect the side seam so that the cut there is not going to be very sharp. Okay, so now I just need to add what? My sewing allowance. So 1/2 inch side seam, 1/2 inch the sleeve crown, then 1.5 inch for the hemline. Here I have my leg of mutton sleeve. For this part, it's going to be gathered into the arm side circumference. So here we come to the second sleeve, which we are going to be working with what? The puff sleeve. So now if you take a good look at the puff sleeve, we have the fullness at the upper part, and we also have a fullness at the desired length. Now the reason why I said the desired length for the puff sleeve, you can either have your puff sleeve as a short sleeve, you can either have it as a 3/4, so it all depends on what your desired length for the puff sleeve. So now having it in mind that you have the fullness at the sleeve crown, and you also have the fullness at the hemline, in as much as we have what? A curve as well. You can either have a curve, or you decide to use an elastic strip to draw them as a gather's form. But what I'm going to be working with here is as a curve. So now get your desired length. So now I'm assuming I'm working with what? A short sleeve. Alright, so this is my what? Short sleeve length. So once you have your short sleeve length, all you just need to do is to cut out that piece. So all this is no longer needed. This is what I am going to be working with for what? My puff sleeve. So once you have this as your puff sleeve, don't forget, for the cuff, if this is your desired length, then it means you have to deduct your cuff height away from your desired length, except you want a desired length to still extend, excluding what? The cuff height. So if this is your short sleeve length and you still want to add your puff height, that is when you can now come here to take out your puff height from it. But if this is your desired length, which is your total length, so you need to come off to take out your curve height. So it means you have to measure your desired curve height away from this. So now this is my desired curve height, which I'm going to be taking out. So now this is my curve height. So now all I need to do now is to achieve my fullness. Bearing it in mind that I have my fullness at the top part and also at the hemline. So it means I have to slash through the three pieces. So now don't forget to label. So I have my number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. So then I'm free to slash out and spread. So I have what? My pattern pieces. Then I pick them up to place on another sheet. So preferably, have a guideline that you're going to be working with. Just get a straight line. So the amount at which you want to spread out your pattern piece also depends on how full you want your gathers to be. So now we begin to slash and spread out, having your fullness added to it. So now I'm just going to be using, let's say 1.5 cm. So I slot in the second one. So at the fullness of 1.5 cm, I paste down the second piece. Then also at the width of 1.5 again, I pick up the third piece to paste down. Then I pick up the last piece at a space of 1.5 centimeter. Now don't forget the measurements I'm using, they are just a dummy measurement. Okay, now that I've achieved what? My slash and spreading out with 1.5 centimeter. All I just need to do now is to add. Before then, I need to reconnect. So just like what we did for the leg of mutton sleeve, you do the same thing as well here. Connect from the UP back to the sleeve crown. Then also connect this part here, the sleeve crown part. Then I had my sewing allowance, 1 inch at the side, ½ inch at the top part, ½ inch at the bottom part. ½ inch at the bottom part because I'm still going to be running a gather through to connect to the curve. ½ inch at the top part because I'm still going to be sewing it into the arm side circumference. Then the side seam. So here I have my puff sleeve pattern. By the time I run my gathers, which is a sewing technique, it slots into this, and I run my gathers at the top part, it slots into the armhole of the body. So here we come to the third sleeve, which we are going to be working with what? As the bishop sleeve. So now if you take a good look at the bishop sleeve, we have the fullness at the desired length. As your puff sleeve, don't forget, for the cuff, if this is your desired length, then it means you have to deduct your curve height away from your desired length. All you need to do now is to slash through to the top line. So it's best you just label 1, 2, 3, and 4, so that by the time you slash through, you don't have to mix up the whole pieces together, because don't forget, you need to achieve what? The sleeve crown back into placement. All you just need to do is to pick up an empty sheet, whereby we are going to replace all this pattern piece back to each other. So preferably have a guideline that you're going to be working with. Just get a straight line. So you can see I'm trying to align this part, which is the slashed part, the straight line that we had. So you have to align it back to each other, then you tape down. So I'm just taping down. Okay, so now once you are done with all the tapings, all you just need to do is to connect the sleeve crown together. So I'll be connecting Okay, so now that I'm done with this, all I just need to do right now is to add my sewing allowance. So 1 inch at the side seam, ½ inch at the hem line, and also at the sleeve crown. Then don't forget, your curve also should be there. So it means you're going to be adding ½ inch to the top, 1 inch to the sides. Then at the hem line, preferably you cut on fold. The hem line, preferably you cut it on fold. So now let me tape this down to add my necessary sewing allowance also for the curve. Then also my ½ inch at the hem line. Okay, so I'm still adding my sewing allowance, so which is ½ inch for the sleeve crown. So now I'm just cutting out what I have as my sewing allowance on my pattern piece. As you can see, all my sewing allowance has been added, half inch for the sleeve crown, 1 inch for the side seam, and half inch for the hemline. Half inch for the hemline because you are still attaching it into the cuff. So this is going to be your gather stitch in order for it to slot in into the cuff. So now we've come to the end of this wonderful module of the sleeve variation. Here we are at AY Stitches Fashion Academy. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to share.